Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
Today, Thursday, January 7th, is the feast of St. Raymond of Peñafort, Dominican priest and co-founder of the Mercedarians. And these are today's headlines. U.S. lawmakers certified Joseph Biden's presidential election victory after protesters stormed the Capitol building. A suspected separatist attack on a convoy in Cameroon has left 5 people dead. And regulators in the European Union have approved the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Moderna for use across the 27-nation bloc. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells. Our top story today, U.S. Catholic bishops, faith-based organizations, political leaders across the world, and many representatives of the U.S. Republican Party have forcefully condemned the violent actions of a mob loyal to President Trump that stormed the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday in an attempt to overturn America's presidential election. Linda Bordoni has this report.
4 people died and dozens were injured on Wednesday as the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. was overrun by protesters attempting to disrupt the completion of the Electoral College tally, the last step before the official inauguration of the new president on the 20th of January. The protesters pushed through the night with tensions high and the nation's capital on alert. But before dawn on Thursday, lawmakers finished their work confirming Joe Biden won the election. Vice President Mike Pence, presiding over the joint session, announced the tally.
The whole number of electors appointed to vote for President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, a majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes.
U.S. bishops unanimously condemned the violence and called for peace and for respect for the common good. Many faith-based organizations also released statements expressing concern, and political leaders in the United States and across the world called for an end to the hateful and divisive rhetoric that spurned the violence. The president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a statement in which he said, "I join people of goodwill in condemning the violence. This is not," he said, "who we are as Americans." Archbishop Jose Gomez went on to note that the peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of the great nation, and that in this troubling moment we must recommit ourselves to the values and principles of our democracy and come together as one nation under God. The Archbishop of Washington, Cardinal Wilton Gregory, described the United States Capitol as sacred ground and a place where people over the past centuries have rightly demonstrated, representing a wide variety of opinions. We Americans, he said, should honor the place where our nation's laws and policies are debated and decided. We should feel violated when the legacy of freedom enshrined in that building is disrespected and desecrated. And assuring the people of his prayers for safety and for peace, he urged citizens to change the divisive tone that has recently dominated political conversation. Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago also tweeted his concern and asked for prayers at this bracing moment in U.S. history, a history, he said, that has been marked by one of democracy's greatest virtues, the peaceful and orderly transition of power. I'm Linda Bordoni.
In the wake of Wednesday's violence, the U.S. Defense Department has formally activated roughly 6,200 members of the National Guard from 6 northeastern states to help support the Capitol Police and other law enforcement in Washington, D.C. Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller signed orders activating the National Guard from Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland for up to 30 days. A defense official said the goal is to have Guard members help secure the U.S. Capitol and the surrounding area through the January 20th inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. In news from Africa, 5 people have been confirmed dead and another 5 wounded in a suspected separatist attack on a convoy in northwestern Cameroon. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
The victims of Wednesday's roadside attack in northwestern Cameroon were 4 soldiers and a government official who all died after their vehicle hit an improvised explosive device, or IED. In October 2017, militant secessionist groups symbolically proclaimed the independence of a new nation, including the 2 Anglophone regions called Ambazonia. In these 4 years, clashes between the Cameroon military and separatist fighters have led to over 3,000 deaths. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack. However, Cameroon's secessionists are being suspected, with similarities being drawn to an attack that was recorded in 2019, in which 4 policemen were killed in the northwest. Ambazonia, the English-speaking part of the country, has often stated that it is unfairly treated by Paul Biya's French-centred government. Paul Biya has been Cameroon's president since 1982. Leader of the succession fighters, Julius Ayuktabe, and other members of his group are in Cameroonian prisons where they've been sentenced for life. However, the group still wields authority, with some of its strongest members leading secessionists. Pope Francis prayed for Cameroon during his general audience on the 27th of October, 2 days after 7 students were killed in an attack on the city of Kumba in the Anglophone region.
Mi unisco al dolore delle famiglie dei giovani studenti barbaramente uccisi sabato scorso a Kumba, in Cameroon.
I participate in the suffering of the families of the young students barbarically killed last Saturday in Kumba, in Cameroon, said Pope Francis. He continued saying, I feel great bewilderment at such a cruel and senseless act, which tore the young innocents from life while they were attending lessons at school.
Che Dio illumini i cuori perché gesti simili non siano mai più ripetuti.
May God enlighten hearts so that similar gestures may never be repeated again, and so that the tormented regions of the northwest and southwest of the country may finally find peace. Finally, Pope Francis prayed that the weapons will remain silent and that the safety of all and the right of every young person to education and the future can be guaranteed. I'm Francesca Merlo.
In the Middle East, Syrian air defenses responded to an Israeli missile attack near Damascus on Wednesday night. Nathan Morley has the latest.
This is the 3rd such attack in just a fortnight. According to the Syrian state news agency Sana, the attack was carried out from over the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. It targeted several military sites south of Damascus. The Sana report added that the Syrian air defences intercepted most of the incoming missiles. Residents in the city said the sound of anti-aircraft weapons could be heard over Damascus for over an hour, with television pictures showing a multi-story building ablaze. Although there was no comment from Israel, 2 military defectors said the strikes hit the Kiswa area of the southern outskirts of the capital and military bases used by Lebanon's pro-Iranian Hezbollah group. Israeli missiles hit a military base in Zabadini suburb west of Damascus at the end of December. That killed 1 Syrian soldier and wounded 3 other men. Earlier this month, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that Israel had carried out a total of 39 attacks on Syrian military sites in 2020. Over 217 Syrian soldiers and pro-Iranian fighters were killed, according to the observatory. Israel has repeatedly said it would not tolerate any military activity of the Iranian-backed militias that are currently operating in Syria. Separately, the killing of civilians in separate car bomb attacks in northern Syria over the weekend has been condemned by top UN humanitarian officials for the country. The first blast occurred in Ras Al Ain when a car bomb exploded in a market on a main road, killing 2 children and injuring their mother and several other people. At least 3 shops were also damaged. The second incident took place near a bakery in Jadaris, located in the northwest of Aleppo. 1 person was reportedly killed, whilst 2 children were amongst the casualties. The UN reminded all parties to the conflict to respect their obligations to take all precautions to protect civilians in line with international humanitarian law and human rights law. For Vatican News, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
Elsewhere, a leading rights group on Thursday urged Libya's UN-backed government to investigate the fate of hundreds of people missing from a key town near the capital, Tripoli. Dozens of mass graves were found there after the withdrawal of a much-feared militia last summer. In a statement, Human Rights Watch quoted Libyan officials as saying that at least 338 residents of the town of Tarhuna were reported missing. The majority of them disappeared during a 14-month-long military campaign led by forces loyal to a rival government based in eastern Libya to capture the capital, according to that report. And briefly elsewhere, Pakistan's counterterrorism police and the country's intelligence agency raided hideouts of an outlawed Shiite militant group in the eastern Punjab province and arrested 7 suspects. And a Turkish court accepted an indictment against jailed Kurdish politician Selahattin Demirtas on Thursday. That's according to state media. It was a rebuff to demands by the European Court of Human Rights for his release. Finally, European regulators on Wednesday approved the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Moderna for use across the 27-nation bloc. It becomes the second to receive EU approval after the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The news comes as fears are growing across the continent of a third wave of coronavirus infections. The UK and Ireland recently put in place tight restrictions on movement. Other European nations, including Germany, are mulling similar moves as cases begin to rise. Meanwhile, Brazil's bishops are urging citizens to accept COVID-19 vaccines when offered. The South American nation recorded over 63,000 new cases on Wednesday. At the start of the new year, the country's bishops are calling on the government to guarantee a vaccine as a right for all Brazilians. Devin Watkins has this report.
Brazil's health minister Eduardo Pazuello said Wednesday the country is ready to begin vaccinating its population against COVID-19 later this month, noting Brazil has ordered 354 million vaccine doses for a population of 209 million. The health minister said President Jair Bolsonaro has signed several executive orders aimed at streamlining vaccine administration. The news came as the South American nation recorded over 63,000 COVID-19 cases and over 1,200 deaths over the past 24 hours. At the same time, the nation's Catholic bishops are calling on the government to ensure all Brazilians' right to receive the vaccine. In a letter released Wednesday, the presidency of the Brazilian Catholic Bishops' Conference said political leaders have the responsibility to quickly define strategies to roll out vaccines immediately. They lamented Brazil's high death toll, around 200,000, and said the loss of life has caused great mourning and pain in the hearts of families. The bishops also urged citizens to receive a vaccine when their turn comes. To eradicate COVID-19, everyone must walk together, no one excluded, they said. Co-responsibility, added the bishops, is of the utmost importance to face this health and social challenge. Since no pandemic can be overcome in isolation, the bishops said vaccination is a social issue, not an individual one. Brazil's bishops then called on all national and ecclesiastical institutions to play their part in combating the crisis. Justice, solidarity, and inclusion are the primary criteria for facing this pandemic, they said, adding that special attention needs to be paid to the most vulnerable and poor. May God help us to learn from the lessons of the pandemic, conclude the bishops of Brazil, so that the nation can move forward in building a healthier world, starting from fraternity and universal solidarity. I'm Devin Watkins.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, be sure to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Many thanks go to our producers and sound engineers in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells.